Yeah, I'm going to stay here in New York. Why do I have to make a trip to Israel? That makes sense. MAGA got fractured not when Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes, but when Donald Trump looked at us in our faces and said, Epstein who? That's when it was game over. Because Israel first is a cancer cell. It is a cancer cell, left or right, to everything and everyone that wants to play around with it.
Candace Owens just revealed the true reason why Zohran Mamdani won the New York City mayoral race. And spoiler alert, it's not because he's a terrorist, it's not because Republicans were infighting nationally, but it's for a very obvious reason that no one in the political establishment will tell you. So let's watch this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Looks like the plan maybe failed, despite the billionaire bucks that were flowing into the anti-Mamdani campaign. He won pretty handily against Andrew Cuomo, which like 5 minutes ago, the Republican Party was telling us he was unbelievably corrupt and that he should be in prison. And all of a sudden, it was our duty to get the word out, to get people to vote for Cuomo somehow again. Bill Ackman almost personally ran against Mamdani, right? At times, he even demanded to have a debate with Mamdani, which I don't understand the context of why Mamdani would be debating Bill Ackman if he's not running against him. Point is, Mamdani won, okay? Bill gave $1.75 million and Mamdani won, irrespective of the money that was donated against him. Michael Bloomberg also gave money to a Cuomo-affiliated super PAC. He gave $8.3 million to stop Mamdani, and it didn't matter. The Airbnb co-founder, Joseph Gebbia, gave $3.1 million. It didn't matter. The Tisch family gave $1.2 million. It didn't matter. Still, Mamdani won. Why? Okay, if we're being honest, he probably won during the first mayoral debate. Okay, just like if I reflect upon 2016, Trump kind of won in the first Republican debate because he was just kind of saying F you to the establishment, and it was pretty apparent. I want you to take a listen.
Yeah, she's exactly right about that. Trump brought that anti-establishment energy, even though he swindled a lot of people toward that because, you know, you don't invite Hillary Clinton to your wedding if you're anti-establishment. But anyways, he said all the right things. He said that it was a big fat mistake to go to war in Iraq. He said that with Jeb Bush on the stage. He called Jeb Bush's brother a disaster, and it's hard for me to convey how radical this was for a Republican at the time to do that, but he had properly anticipated where Americans were on those sorts of issues. And in the same way, whether you like Zohran Mamdani or not, I don't like a lot of his policies at all. He spoke that message to a lot of New Yorkers, especially when it comes to that fifth rail issue you're not exactly allowed to talk about in America if you want to maintain the stature of the establishment political class. So that's Israel.
To this question, it's shocking, actually, if you've never seen this. This is a question that was asked to the New York City mayoral candidates about which foreign country they would visit first if they won.
Okay,
To clear the question on space
this
makes
is
entirely
great.
no sense, but this is how it was answered. Take a listen.
The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my fourth trip to Israel, followed by my fifth trip to Ukraine, two of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
Notice.
As a state with equal rights.
He won't, he
Not
won't
as a
say it
Jewish
has a
state.
right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very
And
clear
his
on
answer
that.
was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
What he was trying to say.
No. Unlike
No,
you, I
you
answer.
never-
Unlike
you
you, I
never
answer
said
questions
no.
very
Okay.
directly.
All right.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family, and it could coincide with my young son Miles' bar mitzvah.
Did you listen to all those establishment shills just try to rail against the only guy that properly anticipated where New Yorkers are on this issue, including Jewish New Yorkers, by the way? And Norm Finkelstein just went on Candace's show to share the fact that the latest polls show that 50% of American Jews don't support Israel, and especially the atrocities in Gaza. That's where the American people are. It's not doubling down on this Israel first mentality that's so absurd. So again, whatever you say about Mamdani, he correctly anticipated where we are on this issue. We're not going to deal with this prioritization of a foreign regime first over the people of the respective localities. And man, I don't like a lot of what I see from Mamdani, not at all, but I don't live in New York. He's properly tapped into the right ideas here, certainly so, and certainly presented himself better than his competition, saying, I think everyone within Israel should have equal rights. That's radical. He's the next Hitler. They literally called him a Hitlerian for that take. For everyone should have equal rights. Imagine that.
Just like, this is our country, you guys. That's it. You know what? I'm going to take my 19th trip to Israel. Oh, well, I'm going to take my first trip after my son's bar mitzvah. Oh, I was planning on stopping over on the way for our honeymoon. We were going to stop and just go to Israel and do whatever we could. It's ridiculous and it's obvious. And the way that the establishment comes down, if you don't peddle those talking points, he says something totally normal. Yeah, I'm going to stay here in New York. Why do I have to make a trip to Israel? And he says, I'd rather work with the Jewish New Yorkers that are here. That makes sense. Why are they all coming down on him? Why have all of our politicians, left and right, sold us out?
That's exactly right. She has the perfect take on this, and I guarantee, like me, Candace Owens doesn't believe in Mamdani's agenda. But he was right here. He so clearly was right here. And this is an issue that dissidents on all sides should be able to align on and coalition over, laying everything else aside. Maybe do battle with different coalitions on those other issues. But she has tapped into the right response to this in so many ways.
Okay. Republican Party. I'll never forget during the presidential debates, they were all wearing, the majority of them, I think there was only Vivek Ramaswamy was not wearing the Israeli pin. I'm like, you're running for president of the United States. What are you doing wearing the Israeli flag as a pin on your jacket? No one can answer these questions. And they do the same thing. I love Israel more. No, I love Israel more. No, I love Israel more.
Yeah, they try to one up each other and see who can kiss the wall in Jerusalem longer, who can have the biggest and most ridiculous humiliation ritual. This is what they do to try to placate the Israel lobby. If you toe that line, you can get a considerable amount of political support, but it's kind of playing an old game now, right? Because so much of the populace has moved away from this and is noticing it. The mass awakening of Americans on this is palpable. The noticing continues, and especially over things like this.
Keep in mind, by the way, Mamdani won, and New York has the largest population of Jewish people of any city in the world next to Israel. So that says something, okay? And he still won. Now, did he get the majority of the Jewish vote in New York? No, but the exit polls are quite stunning. He got way too much of the Jewish vote in New York, I would say. And I'm going to bring in Mark in my ear to mansplain what we're seeing here on the exit polls. Mark, can you please mansplain?
Yeah, as you can see, it looks like despite not winning the Jewish vote, he got a huge proportion of it. 32% is pretty insane for allegedly how anti-Israel he is. And even deeper in here, you can see that Israel was a factor in a lot of these people's votes. This is according to a CNN exit poll of about 4,700 people coming out. And really, it's an election for mayor of New York. I don't see what this has anything to do with that.
Well, that's interesting because that shows us how Americans are prioritizing issues. It's not as the establishment says when you're saying that, well, Israel isn't an issue up close and personal to Americans. Americans don't care about that, but they truly do care about that. And even if they don't see it directly in front of them, this issue impacts so many other spillover issues that result from it. The debt that we have, the $38 trillion in debt, not all accrued over funding to Israel, but a significant portion of it. They're the biggest foreign policy recipient of any country in the world since its inception, about $350 billion. That has caused the central bank to print currency to finance our debt. That's caused inflation. When they print more currency, it acts as an invisible tax against the existing currency. That's why we see gas so expensive. That's why we see food so expensive and college tuition. The hate speech laws that are being rewritten because of this. Americans are noticing this issue just can't be ignored. The fence sitters will not prevail on this issue. You can pretend that, you don't care, but impartiality is always partial to the status quo. And when we see so much U.S. policy just prioritizing this foreign country over our own concerns as Americans, they're not going to pay attention to you anymore. If that's your line that you expect your constituency and your tribe to toe, we're just not doing it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, this is just something, and I think it also speaks to when Norm Finkelstein was on our show and he was explaining that even amongst the Jewish community, like the Israel question is now here and it's not going to go around. It's not going to go away. This is sticking around. But I guess the bigger, broader question is why didn't MAGA? Why didn't MAGA? Why didn't MAGA do the thing? We've infiltrated MAGA and we told them to do what we want and we wanted them to all make posts, anti-Mamdani posts. Just to be clear, even President Trump, dedicated 900% more Truth Social posts to ensuring that Mamdani would lose than to ensuring that Charlie Kirk's murderer was found. 900% increase in messaging coming from him, since he didn't even send one message about investigating Charlie's murder.
Yeah, she's right. MAGA started with the slogan, Make America Great Again, with America First as kind of a sub-slogan. But somewhere down the line, you can put it wherever you want. I think this happened way back in Trump's first term in many regards. We've talked about that a lot. Somewhere along the line, that movement became MEGA, Make Israel Great Again. Well, did Americans vote for Make Israel Great Again? No, they generally didn't. In 2024, Trump enjoyed a lot of support, a lot of political support for Make America Great Again. And when they saw this movement turning into MEGA, they're just going to jump ship. So many people have jumped ship, rightly so in my mind, over this.
But the question is, why didn't MAGA listen even to Trump? Why didn't we all get on our platforms and say something? Because people like Dana Lash want to know, how are we going to win if you guys don't use your platforms and encourage people to vote? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. We don't recognize this MAGA because the fact that you're in it makes no sense. You were never Trump. If you're telling us that MAGA is now Josh Hammer, then MAGA is not MAGA. Okay, MAGA needs a new leader. And it's pretty obvious that you guys recognize that we have never been with you. We've actually never been on the same team. And if you think you're going to infiltrate and convince us that this is the same party while we get gaslit about everything that's happening, like I said, you lost the party. MAGA got fractured, not when Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes, but when Donald Trump looked at us in our faces and said, Epstein who? That's when it was game over. Because Israel First is a cancer cell. It is a cancer cell, left or right, to everything and everyone that wants to play around with it.
Man, fire breathing, but she could not be more correct on that. I just think this is such a correct and accurate and heroic take. She's so right. It's not our fault that MAGA went, off the rails so obviously. It's being dragged into a new war in Iran and, doubling down on the atrocities in Gaza, saying it's all just Hamas. That's the reason. It's pleading. Trump did with the Knesset to drop all charges against the genocidal maniac Netanyahu, when he would have gone down for fraud and corruption. That's being prolonged. Maybe he will face those charges eventually. I don't know. He's gotten out of it by bombing essentially all of his neighbors, 7 of them, since October 7th. It's being sucked in to this Israel First mentality. The Epstein files cover-up. We know Epstein had very close associations with Israeli government figures, including especially Ehud Barak. He was the protege of Robert Maxwell, Israel's most famous spy. He had relations with Ari Ben-Menashe, the famous whistleblower that said Epstein was involved in a blackmail operation. All these things are public information, but we're just supposed to expect that there's nothing here. So yeah, Candace is right. This is why Mamdani won. With a lot of the populace of New York. It's not exclusively this, but you could see him there presenting well, standing on stage, and, telling the truth, something so obvious that most Americans and most New Yorkers saw that, I'm going to prioritize the people in the boroughs of New York. Imagine that. I'm not just going to say I'm going to take my 19th trip to Israel. It's part of a bar mitzvah. And I'm going to go to Ukraine too because it's such a beacon of democracy. All these nonsense answers. People aren't putting up with it anymore. And it's so cool to see this. If you're a dissident, whether you're on the left or the right, it's just so cool to see this. And I'm not a fan of him at all. But it's not my business. I'm not in New York. We should have a federalistic system where what New York does doesn't matter to me down here in Tennessee anyways. You put up with them and let the chips fall where they may. Let people move out if they don't like it. That's my mentality. I would feel pretty pompous about weighing into a local election like this when, I don't live there. And if you think he's going to be a failure, well, that would persuade people that do think he's a failure to go to other places that you might think are better anyway. So that's what we're dealing with here. I just think the establishment right is so feckless in general on this election, with some, very prominent pundits actually siding with Cuomo after dragging him through the dirt so many times in 2020 to 2021 over the COVID regime. I think rightly so, for blasting him for, the religious worship restrictions and closures of businesses and mask mandates and, some of the worst COVID policies that truly brought totalitarianism to the American doorstep for the first time in my lifetime, essentially since 9/11. I mean, here's one of them, Megyn Kelly, right? And I don't think everything's terrible about Megyn Kelly. Definitely don't agree with her on Israel whatsoever. She's a fence sitter. She has done minor critiques of Israel, but still maintains to be a Zionist. But that's kind of beside the fact here. She's pleading for the case to elect Cuomo in this race, instead of just stay out of this, like these two supervillains, including one that literally killed grandparents alone in hospitals due to the COVID policies in New York. I'm still going to tell you to vote for him. There's no better evidence of conservatism being progressivism driving the speed limit, as Michael Malice says, than this. Let's take a listen.
There's no choice right now. You're going to have to vote Cuomo. I'm sorry. I with all due respect to Curtis Lewa, I can't stand Cuomo, but Curtis can't win. And we're now so tight in terms of the election, you got to get real. How are we going to elect this guy, this imam-loving, this terror-loving, imam-loving Mamdani as the next mayor of New York? Curtis Lewa, I respect. It's just he wasn't able to get it done. His numbers are too low. He's not a realistic candidate. That's the truth.
They're going to say he's a terrorist using the same cards that the neocons played in the wake of 9/11, in the Bush-era neocon dynasty, to try to side against this guy, to side with the guy that they said killed grandparents alone in hospitals, and I do think his policies did cause those things, and raked him over the coals for that. This is so ridiculous. It's reducing politics to choosing between two forms of cancer, the one that you like slightly more than the worst form of cancer. And that's what you put up with. That's what we have to put up with as Americans, and not, individual rights and liberty and justice. That's what we're going to reduce our political system to, is choosing between the lesser of two evils, where the two evils, by your own admission, are horrendous. No, I say no. Don't do that. And I'm not saying that there isn't other solutions to this. You can have education campaigns and use nullification bills on a local level to eliminate or obstruct the enforcement of, treacherous or unconstitutional policies by the higher level governments. And that can happen regardless of who you elect or what the composition of the legislature is. Regardless of who wins the legislative elections in Nashville, I want to build, a right to try coalition to nullify some of the FDA's restrictions. I want to organize, an anti-gun control coalition built from people of various places, maybe different ideologies on that issue. Same with the Israel issue. That will encompass a broad spectrum between Democrats and Republicans now. That's how you can deal with politics. And I just think the Republicans are so bad. But anyways, what did you think? Is Candace Owens right about that? Leave me know down below in the comments. Why did Zohran Mamdani win? Let me know. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Candace. Awesome presentation. Also, if you want to be a YouTube member of mine, click the join button below. That'll get you access to all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And if you want a free copy of my book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. Plug in in your email, and I'll send that right to you free of charge. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.